So how are you today?
I'm fine. How you doing?
I'm doing well, and we've got Danny here as well. How are you going, Danny?
Hey, I'm doing good. Thanks for inviting me on the show again.
No problems. Well, you're my regular. You're my offsider, so we kick ass together.
Yeah, kind of do, don't we? Hey, thanks for coming on, Bill.
Yes.
Oh, man, how you been doing?
To join us. And look, unfortunately, we don't have suspicious observers with us today. Hopefully that we might be able to get him another time, but unfortunately we had a bit of a mix-up with time zones, and he had to work, so we don't have him with us. But I'm sure he can pick your brain, Mr2Tuff2, and we are going to be doing that a lot with this show. So I suppose let's start off with basically just a little bit of background, Billy. What is your area of research? What do you, really kind of focus on when you are, researching?
Well, I mean, pretty much two main areas. I love astronomy to begin with, and of course, I've been all into alternative energies, pretty much.
Absolutely. So you look into Walter Russell's work at all?
Yeah, I hadn't read everything that he has, but yeah, I've looked into it pretty bit.
Oh, I like his work. I find, his theories are pretty much are confirming a lot of what's going on. I'm finding that that's what's happening. All of these researchers that were called crazy back in the day are now actually the ones that we should be listening to. So.
Hey, Billy, haven't you been working on some kind of inventions and stuff, Billy?
I've been, not necessarily anything of my own, just like she said, they're trying out these old technologies that have been hidden, finding out whether they really work or not. A lot of them don't work, but there's quite a few that do, so.
Now, I was interested, Billy, because you have a theory about the sun, and it's quite different to the flat Earth science theories that we currently get from the agencies. So can you explain how you see the sun as, working and what the mechanisms are with our sun?
Well, that's kind of a long story. I don't know. I had to go outside one day and look.
We got a lot of time to
I had to go out and take a look at the sun. Yeah. I had to take a second look at the sun one day. The hydrogen fuel cell, was the one that got it started, because I started building the thing, and I don't know, they'll call you crazy for saying it, you know what I mean? But I have questions, and I get answers, I can't help that. If you can meditate and get in touch with your higher self-conscious, which is what I believe it is, you can get answers to questions. You can get answers to questions. It's that simple, really. And I don't know. It wasn't when I noticed that, when I started putting the hydrogen fuel cell, I kind of noticed everybody had dollar signs in their eyes, Everybody liked to do. That's all they wanted to talk about was, man, how much money you can make.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, man, I know good and well that this is not what this is intended for. So I just continued to ask, what is this about? What am I supposed to be learning? And I just continued to look into it, and it's just something else. It's something else. The interaction that electricity has with water. I mean, that's how they grow algae. And
you and I talked about this a while back. It's kind of interesting the way that the universe kind of communicates to you when you're ready for it, and if you're wanting it, the universe kind of gives the information to you, doesn't it, Billy?
Just be open to it,
Yep.
Not necessarily expect any answer, That's the thing. It's like a subconscious thing. If you expect it, ain't gonna know what.
Yep.
But I don't know. It occurred to me that, I mean, it's the sun, and when you really look into it, man, when you realize the sun is not a nuclear furnace, then it can't really be anything else. No other way to reproduce what's in the sky other than an induced current into mostly water. And the fact is, if a high enough current were to be induced into Earth, it would do the same thing. Our atmosphere would burn exactly like that.
Yeah.
Any of them would. In fact, anything that has water on it's going to burn like that with enough electricity in it. And then when you start seeing all the little cosmic rays and looking into the, those are high energy plasmas that show up, and that's exactly, it's all right there. So
yeah.
it can't be but one or two things. When you rule out the one, it can't be nothing but the other.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose people have a really hard time of wrapping their brain around that there is water on the sun because, of course, we've been conditioned to believe the flat earth science of the sun being this, nuclear-powered furnace, that is very hot and, a ball of fire, basically. And, they need so many theories to keep that going, don't they? They kind of need to create all of these new theories every time something different happens on the sun that they can't explain. They bring out these equations again that have to try and make some sense of it. Whereas, when you look at your theory and the theory of the electric universe, and, it's just so beautifully simple. And, even Einstein himself said that nothing should be too difficult in nature. It's always, beautifully simplistic. So
I firmly believe that myself. It can't be so complicated that one or two people will only, figure it out.
Yeah, and
what's your view on electricity and magnetism? Just curious.
Light.
Do you kind of see
that?
Okay. Like for example, Santos talks about he talks about that there's raw, which is the electricity, the radiation, and then there's the magnetism side of it. I'm just kind of curious in the research that you've done so far, Billy. Do you kind of see magnetism as like another side or another pole of electricity? How do you see it?
Some people say they're one and the same, but I don't know. They are two different things, but you just don't find them without each other, in my opinion. Everywhere you look, if you find electricity, there's a magnetic field around it.
Yeah.
Almost one is a signature of the other. Yet they do tend to have totally different properties,
That they can't exist without each other. Is that right? They
yes.
can't exist without each other? Yeah. So,
When I always see Santos talking about it seems to make sense. Everything, even in hermetics, when we talk about hermetics, we have it's the same thing, it's just on one side of the pole or the other. So does that mean that electricity is on one of the sides of the pole and the magnetism is on the other? I don't know. I don't think that they have all the answers to electromagnetic fields and stuff like that, do they, Billy?
Well, they probably would if they'd look, I think the fundamental, they pretty much got it nailed.
Yeah.
It's an induced current that comes from somewhere, Our sun gets it from the center of the galaxy, and if you look into it even further, I just recently noticed what NASA even recognizes called the Great Attractor. It's located in the Virgo constellation, but actually there are thousands of galaxies, including ours, that are being drawn into a point in space called the Great Attractor.
Oh, I didn't know that.
They can't explain, matter of a black hole in the center of a galaxy, then they're certainly not going to be able to explain. They're not going to find a particle small enough to draw in thousands of galaxies.
Yeah.
Just not going to get it. It's not a particle there. It's an energy.
Exactly.
That magnetism and electricity in great quantity.
They don't even know how magnetism works. They really don't understand it. They have not, and they don't understand gravity either. So, that's because, as you said, they're not looking in the right area. They're continuing to hold on to this, Big Bang theory. But that's because I think that there's an agenda of having to fit all the information within the boundaries of religion.
I think there's, I think that this whole thing with CERN and everything that they're doing with the God particle, all that, they already know what's going on. They already know what's out. Those people are not stupid, and they know what, the deal is, folks, what we've got is we've got a bunch of scientists out there that have already published stuff, and, the Vatican controls a lot of this stuff. I don't know if you guys have been on to NASA's site, but the Vatican is just all up in their butt, okay?
Yeah.
And so if anything comes out that begins to take people down a path where they may see some kind of a different type of creation of the universe that maybe goes against theology or what people have been taught in the Bible, I think that it's being held back. And I think that I think that kind of thing in science is being held back. And I think that and these guys that are the publishers, the guys that are the scientists at the top, they're afraid to say what's really going on. Thank God we got people like Thunderbolts.info out there to actually present other points of views and back them up in a credible way so that people can actually see that these other guys that are spitting all this other stuff out there are being paid off. And I see a lot of that kind of stuff going on right now. And so when I see stuff like CERN and when I see them looking for all this, I have to think that there must be some kind of an agenda or something going on because I know they're smarter than they're letting on.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's interesting that you say how interested the Vatican are in all of this, because I remember last year when they put the wave particle collector, I think you probably know about this, Billy, and they put that up on the ISS to measure the particle waves that were coming through, I think, but they actually had a link up with the Pope, and the Pope was speaking to the astronauts. Now, why is the Pope so interested in a wave particle counter? Why is he speaking to astronauts? And people need to start asking themselves these questions.
Mm-hmm.
What was it that they were putting up there, Billy?
I have no idea.
It's something to do with particles. They were counting the particles because I think there's a lot of energy that's impacting our planet that they don't understand, and they're trying to, measure it and study it and figure it out. So I think it had something to do with a wave particle collector. But, I just thought, why is the Pope on a teleconference call with some astronauts up at the ISS? That really raised my eyebrows, that one. So, absolutely.
I heard that one. That's something else.
Well, Billy, I can... Can you tell us a little bit about... I know you kind of explained it to me before, the stuff that you do and the things that you're building and stuff, and things that these guys just don't look at, and the stuff that you're working on. Can you kind of explain that? Because a lot of these folks that are listening right now could probably digest a lot of the technical information and stuff, and I think I'd like to hear it as well.
Well, that's several things. So, I built a solar generator, 10,000 watt solar generator too here over the past 3 or 4 years. Working on it a little bit here and there.
Yep.
That to me right now, solar and wind energy, and of course the new black light concept there. I mean, it's been proven by several universities that it actually works, and that's a whole new source of power generation that's pretty much going to change it all. I haven't seen one of those work yet, so in my opinion, solar and wind are the primary sources to get electricity from, other than, what they may come up with this new energy, black light. It's a fuel cell technology. It's a plate. Huh?
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. Please continue.
It's similar to, it's a plate technology, a cell technology, just like the fuel cell I built here. I mean, it just works in almost in a reverse manner. You induce hydrogen and oxygen into a cell of plates, and they extract electricity from the gas. Or, I mean, like any physics equation, it's supposed to work both ways. You can add electricity to water and get energy, or you can do it. Theory is supposed to be able to do it the other way around too, and they've proven that actually does work. So it's just a scalability thing. That having to build one big enough to power somebody's house may end up being about as big as a good sized utility shed or something.
Yeah.
Have you built any working models of anything that you've done so far, Billy?
Well, I had the hydrogen fuel cell works out there, and I've been working on a couple of these magnet motors that they claim work, and I hadn't got one working yet. It's a mess. I mean, when you do these kinds of things, you end up doing 9 that don't work till you get to one that does, and you can't sit and make videos all day about stuff that don't work. So it's been kind of slow about it here lately.
Oh, I know how that goes. Yeah. What's your excitement right now? What are you working on currently?
Yeah, magnet motor. I'm really interested in trying to make a magnet motor. It's that force that turns, that's what we got to find. That turns on its own, The AC generator that Nikola Tesla invented way back, that we use it for power. That's the energy deal. It's just a magnet spinning inside of a copper coil, or a copper coil spinning inside of a magnet. And motion is energy, and if you turn it, the more energy is going to go into it. Yep. Iron has that property of drawing the energy in from our magnetic field. And if you take iron and melt it to a certain point and pass it through electromagnet at a certain temperature, it becomes a magnet. That's how they make magnets, by the way. They actually add a nickel to it, call it neodymium magnets, which helps align the molecule even better. So actually all a magnet is a properly aligned chunk of iron, so to speak. And the more the molecules align north and south with each other, the more magnetic that the object becomes. This only works with iron, though. Iron's the only thing you magnets out of.
Oh, wow.
But you can make nickel and other things, make alloys, which actually make stronger magnets, but iron is the basic property of the magnet. And, of course, copper is the other side of the equation. It's only those two metals that interact that create the electricity, and it doesn't actually create electricity. When you move a magnet by a piece of copper, that motion draws energy in from our magnetic field, our atmosphere. It's full of energy. It's full of hydrogen, which is where the energy is at. It just happens to be in that hydrogen atom. And, if you look at the MRI, they show you, that the MRI at the hospital, what it actually does, the magnet, they had 2 separate magnets on an MRI.
So we were basically talking about electromagnetic electricity, and what I was actually doing was looking for a man that had created an electromagnetic machine. Now, you might know about this guy, Billy. I can't think of his name off the top of my head. He was originally from the UK, and then what he did was moved over to New Zealand. And he actually created this machine, and he started powering his own home, and then he started actually powering his neighbours' homes as well. And what happened was the police came along and the government came along and said, no, I'm sorry, you're not allowed to do that. And they basically made him, get rid of it and take apart the machine. And he was not allowed to generate his own power. So I'm just wondering
your thoughts on that.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard of that either, but I could speculate that that's a magnet. That's that magnet motor. They got them out, or supposedly not on the market, but you can find them on YouTube. There's some boys that's done some pretty extensive work on those. It's just like two. You got one generator and one electric motor that they take all the wires out of, and they replace it with sets of magnets around the armature or the shaft, and then around the housing. And if you set them in the right, orientation, that it'll spin by itself.
Oh, I wish I knew this guy's name, but I've just posted the video in the chat room. So maybe Stone can have a quick look at the video, please, Stoney, and see if you can check out who this guy was, because I just found it really interesting how he was not allowed to generate his own power, and I would wonder why that would be against any law. So I just wonder whether, if you did create such a machine, Billy, whether they would just come along and tell you that you can't utilize it. You've got to be connected to the grid and, paying to exist using their energy. So...
what's funny is when I was 13 years old, Billy, it's kind of funny, because I remember when I was 13 years old, I told my dad, I said, can you take me down to the hobby store, because I think I can make myself a perpetual motion machine. And he kind of giggled, and he took me up to the hobby store, and I got myself this. Now I was 13, mind you, so I mean, I think it was pretty good for a 13-year-old. So I got this stick, and then on this stick I put I made it look like a windmill. Okay, made a windmill. So I made like a windmill, and on each end of the windmill I had a magnet. And then what I had was on the outside, I had a stationary magnet sitting there, so that when the magnets would pass by, stationary magnet, I was hoping they would continue to move, right? And I was thinking, that's not bad for a 13-year-old.
That's pretty good. That kind of makes me think about what Billy said at the beginning of the show, and that is that the information is there for us to access. It's just a matter of accessing it. So, that might have been the case of you actually just, accessing that information as a child and just thinking about it in that way. Is it,
Yeah.
And I think that's the way Billy gets it. Billy gets it a hell of a lot more complex. Billy gets it the way it's supposed to be done.
It's crazy too to think about, but I mean, it's almost like when you really look at it, the universe, everything we'll ever know is in this universe.
Yeah.
Yep.
And when you see the scale of micro and macro, and the fact that the human brain cell on the scale, you never see that repeat of the universe again until you get to the brain cell, the biological brain cell.
Yep.
And to think that all the knowledge is in the biggest one, you'd have to say that all that knowledge was in that smaller one too. Absolutely. And and you think about, we don't use but 10% of our brain. Well, you think, where's the other 90% at? That's the rest of that knowledge. It's in you now. It's like they, they refer to it in universities and colleges to this day. When Einstein realized this was happening, or when Newton realized this, is because it was always that way. It was just the fact that he realized it.
Yeah.
It's incredible. He already knew. He just didn't. His conscious didn't get a hold of his subconscious to find out.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually think that perhaps some of these researchers that don't access that higher self, that remain in the physical 3D style of logical thinking, perhaps close down those channels to that information. And, then they have that, reliance on these huge theories, these huge equations, because they're not actually opening themselves up and being, a conduit to that information. Like, you understand that side of things, Billy, and I suppose that allows you to open up the channels of communication with whatever it is, because, if you look at Walter Russell's work, he actually says that all the information that we ever require, that we ever need, that we ever have had is in existence right now. What we need to do is access that information. And Danny had a very interesting interaction with someone yesterday in regards to misunderstanding what that means about we already have the information. Danny, what happened? Do you want to kind of talk about what happens and how people are, kind of confusing?
There's a lot. When I go out here on YouTube and I see what people are typing, everybody wants to feel like they are part of this, this consciousness expansion. the problem is that in wanting that so much that people sometimes forget to actually go out and use their own minds in order to expand their consciousness. So what they end up doing is they end up just repeating the words of somebody else. For example, yesterday somebody said, it's not what you know, it's why you know it, and you know everything. See, these kinds of things, like when people say things like you know everything and there's no such thing as time and everything you see is an illusion, all that's great at a level that doesn't exist on the plane that we're existing on. But when we start talking about the plane that we have been given to exist on, we have to understand that we've been given certain rules, universal rules to live by. That's the whole nature of where we are. So you can say that time doesn't exist if you want to. You can say that knowledge isn't necessary because we know everything, and you can say all these things, but you're fooling yourself because in this reality that we are in right now, you have to follow the universal law of time. You have to have knowledge. I mean, you can say that you just know everything, and knowing is just wonderful, and it's a great buzzword and a great thing to say. But the only way that you know something is because you've learned something. And so people need to make sure that they continue to try to learn more and more. People, and they've really got to be careful about these buzzwords that people just repeat like that, like you know everything. So when the universe is ready to tell you what you need to know, you'll know it. So just go sit in the dark room and wait, and when the time is right, it'll happen. No, that's not how it works. You've got to go out and search for it. You've got to want to know more. You've got to want to learn more, and you've got to approach everything with the curiosity of a child. One of the problems that everybody gets into out there is that, and this is one of the big problems I have with this Saturn people, that we keep confronting with, is because if you go to people's channels and you take a look at what they're showing, it's all fear-based. Okay, it's all about Saturn, cubes, locusts, everything else. And if you take a look at that kind of stuff, and then they call themselves Christians, and I'm kind of digressing here. The problem is that it's all this fear, and the whole reason that this fear has been put into place is because when you scare somebody, they don't want to know about the information, right?
That's
so
right.
If I tell you, for example, that Saturn is bad, and you're a researcher, okay? Well, what a lot of people do on YouTube and on the internet is they just go, well, Danny said that Saturn's bad, so Saturn is bad, right? And they don't go out and they don't go and check the information themselves. When somebody tells me something, I don't care if it is God Almighty, okay? I go out and I bounce the information off against other information, and I see what confirms itself and what it contradicts itself. You have to be very careful, folks, because there's a lot of people out there that just want you to follow them because they know damn well you're not going to go out and research the information yourself, so they want to pull you into their little cult of whatever they believe. If you're a smart person, what you do is you listen to what they had to say and they go, okay, and then you go to another place and you see what they have to say and you compare the information together and see if they contradict each other or if they confirm it. That is what a real analyst does. That is how you get to the truth. And that's how you get to the truth when it comes to news. It doesn't matter what news you listen to, whether it's Fox News, ABC. I mean, look, Fox News has been right sometimes, right? But you know how I know that? Because when you put 100 people in the same room and you want to find out who the liar is, you ask everyone. You don't ask just the liar. You ask everyone in the room what the story is. And when everybody tells you one thing and one person tells you something different, you know who the liar is. That's why it's so important to research the information yourself, folks out there. Don't fall into this whole fear trap. People want to scare people saying this is evil, that is evil, Saturn's evil, cubes are evil, locusts are. I'm so sick of all this stuff.
Nothing is evil.
Yeah, everything is evil, right? And I'm so sick of hearing it because it scares people away from knowledge.
Yeah. Well, I had an interaction myself with someone yesterday, and, you know, he's quite a nice person. I can tell he's got a very good heart, and perhaps he's just quite a little bit confused at the moment, and he actually follows some of these very hateful channels that bring out this information. And when I questioned him as how could you actually take any information from this channel when it is so hateful and spiteful, and they attack people like, you know, you, Danny, and me, and Nibiru Magic and Santos Bonacci. We're all being attacked. They're making these videos and attacking us. So I said, you know, I just don't understand how you could follow someone that is so hateful. What could you possibly gain? And he said, oh, well, he says that the Saturn cult has all of the political leaders in it, you know, so I really need to listen to that because he's got that information. Well, you know, why not go and actually do the research into the Saturn cult? Is there any evidence to show that we've got these high-ranking politicians that are in this Saturn cult? Because, you know, I've done a lot of research myself, and I can tell you that the politicians really don't matter at all, guys. They are just puppets, you know. They don't really have a lot of power at all. They're just talking mouthpieces that get paid off at the end of the day and go on to live, you know, a life of indulgence after they have served their term as a puppet, you know. So this is what Danny's saying, and also what I'm saying is that, oh, I've got a phone call. Hang on 2 seconds.
Yeah, I agree. They're there just to distract.
He's just taken that, you know, Saturn cult as its absolute evidence, and as you said, Danny, if he went and spent the time actually doing a little bit of research, he would find that it's speculation. There's really not a lot of, you know, kind of evidence that suggests that that is the case, you know. So.
Well, so the guys in the chat room are wanting to know why I was looking at the nebula in the first place. This takes me back to, well, you know, when I first jumped on YouTube, you know how we're all just kind of looking at everything out there, right? We're just kind of absorbing information. I just happened to be in a position where I was looking at, because I had just seen some stuff about the Vatican, and I was looking at the churches and this art and stuff like that. And I had just seen some stuff about the, you know, the cosmos and stuff like that. And about a year and a half, 2 years ago, I was a completely different person. I was stuck in my whole little world of systems analysis, you know, trying to bring home the buck, you know, every day. And it's a great little life and everything like that. But even though that I don't have a job right now, I wouldn't trade with the knowledge that I have for the world. I mean,
yeah.
But it just so happens that I happen to be looking at the Orion Nebula, the highest resolution that NASA had to offer, and the Spitzer version of it, and I was looking at church art at the same time, and I just happened, for whatever reason, I just happened to put the two together. I saw them on the screen at the same time or something, and I was like, you know, that looks a lot like that. And I remember when I think back and I was like, oh, I wonder if that could, and I had no idea, you know, the depth of the knowledge that I have now about what all this meant. All I was really looking at were shapes, right? And I was like, you know, that looks almost exactly like what I'm seeing here on this altar. And so I remember when I first put out the first video, I was like, folks, this is what I'm seeing. They're showing Orion. Oh, my gosh, you know, I got so many thumbs down on that because, and I really wasn't doing a very good job at showing people what I was seeing. And so it's actually been a very interesting progression at finding ways to show people what's out there, you know, because, you know, the communication, you know, finding ways to hit people and say, to make them, that light bulb turn on, very challenging thing to do. You have to try all different types of things, right? And so although I could see some things, I didn't know how to communicate, see? And so finally, I think with these overlays lately, I think I've done a pretty good job.
Yeah, that's definitely hitting the spot. You know, it's interesting, Danny, because, you know, we were looking at a lot of Michelangelo's, and it seems to be that there are waves of illumination.
You're kind of breaking up a little bit again, I think.
Oh, sorry, guys. There are kind of waves of illumination or waves of enlightenment that seem to happen throughout history. And the Renaissance seems to be one of these times where we had this enlightening and this illumination. And I find it interesting that Orion was talking to these artists, and it seems now Orion is also talking to you. So I wonder if Orion opened up these channels at certain times, certain cycles in the cosmos cause us to access this information for Orion a lot easier. And this is actually what you're doing. You're actually accessing the same information that these artists were accessing. However, you're actually using their information to bring it out to others, if you can kind of understand where I'm going with that.
Yep.
I'd say maybe not as much accessing as it is being broadcast to you.
Yeah.
More than I don't know. You look at history too. When all the massive amounts of knowledge come out, and even in recent history this has happened, there's always some consequence to it, either before or after, globally, cataclysmically, as speaking. Like was looking at something just the other day. I saw an article about giants were discovered in Kansas. And there's an actual article in a scientific journal, where they found a whole family of giant people, in Kansas. Well, what was crazy about it was, in the article, there were 3 other articles around that one. And S.O. and I were actually looking at it together, and I was showing him the giant article. And he's like, Billy, do you see what's wrote over here? And I'm like, no, I didn't pay no attention. Started looking, and, well, there's one on there about spiral energy, and then there's another article down there about how electricity may play a part in weather. Well, you look at the date, it was from 1882.
Wow.
The scientific journal was from 1882. This grand amount of knowledge was in this one page. Yet in 1883 was the year of the Great Comet, the year of Krakatoa, the consequence,
Wow.
But this seems to be
the
same thing.
You know what 1882 was also, was the year of Venus transit.
Yeah.
So I find that very interesting too. There's obviously a lot of correlation between these cosmic events and these illuminations, because
it's almost like, you're going to need this here. It's like, here's some knowledge, you may need this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of the way it works. And it's funny too. It always has a certain timing about it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's always right there.
Like part of a script. It's almost like it's like right when you need the information, here it is. That's what's funny.
Exactly. Synchronicity and all of that plays a big part in it all. And like you say, it's almost like a script that we're following, that all of this information actually, comes up when it should. Interestingly, a lot of this wasn't even really being discussed 5 years ago. Why is that? Why is it that we are now only discussing this information in a way that people can actually understand it as well? I think you have to be ready for the information. It's a little bit like when they talk about hermetics and throwing pearls before the swine, so if you're not actually ready for the information, then there's not a lot you can do with it, because you're just quite simply not going to understand it. So I find it really interesting how we are consciously expanding, and there's these cycles, and obviously the Venus transits, and it all seems to tie into us moving forward. But, it's interesting, guys, that we know that we're moving into an eon, and I know there's some discussion about, oh, no, it's not for another 100 years, and, oh, it's not this. Well, I tend to go with, John Major Jenkins, who's done a lot of research in this area. We are definitely moving towards a galactic alignment and, a new eon. And, a golden age is, basically what I feel we are heading towards, just because I can see this conscious expansion. And interestingly, civilization is always at its peak at the beginning of these ages. And then they decline. So,
I'll tell you what, when you start looking into it like that too, you start realizing how far back it went, where this knowledge was being given to you. And man, it's incredible. I mean, I was born and raised in a sheet metal shop. That's all I've ever done my whole life. In fact, I used to take the books home from work, and study, to then self-taught myself how to make pretty much everything, fabrication-wise. Any type of, sheet metal fit. I can make a car hood or a car door. It don't matter. air conditioning, it doesn't matter. Once you learn how to use the compass and square, you can make anything you want. In fact, that's the two tools that you got to have. And I started learning that back in my teens, and not realizing what that was going to have any implication now to all this. It's incredible.
And that's just
it's incredible when you start looking back how far back it goes.
And that just confirms the whole idea that it's folks are always worried about the ABCs, the XYZs. How do I do this in order to reach a higher state of consciousness or get that information that I need? And it's not difficult. It's not that difficult. So all you got to do is do exactly what Billy did, and that is want to know more. You got to be curious. You got to want to know more, and you got to just not let things scare you.
Always take an open approach. You got to have an open approach. You got to have an open approach. Have indoctrinated thoughts in your head, or
right.
I don't know.
It all starts with curiosity. It all starts with curiosity, and if you're not curious and you don't want to know more, well, you're not going to get the information. It's not about systems of, and this is where I see a lot of people that they just don't understand. There's like, well, gosh, I meditate every day for 10 minutes, and I listen to 432 hertz tones, and I'm always eating raw vegetables all the time, and gosh, I just can't seem to, it's like,
trying too hard.
But it's like, you're not, what is it you want? Do you want, what kind of information are you trying to get, or are you just meditating for the hell of it? Yeah, I mean, meditating is great for you. It's great for your body. It's a healthy thing to do. However, if you want that higher knowledge, it starts with curiosity. It starts with wanting to know more and going out there and getting it. And it also, in order to get that information, you cannot be one of those people that falls into the whole fear trap all the time. If someone tells me, for example, that I need to be afraid of cubes, I don't go, oh, okay, I'm going to be afraid of cubes. I go, why should I be afraid of cubes? Let me go look up cubes and find out what the cubes are all about. No. And do I go and look, and do I find out from other YouTube users? No. I go out to credible information. I look at all the different information. I bounce information off each other. I look at history. I look at mythology. I look at everything. And that's the way that people should approach this stuff. Someone tells you need to be afraid of Saturn or Kronos or the hexagram means this or that or the other. You need to question, you need to say, okay, thank you for all of that information. Now I'm going to take all that information and I'm going to look it all up on the internet and see whether you're full of crap or not.
Yeah.
And that's I've heard do because they just want it fed to them, see. They don't want to go out there and actually use their mind and make it work.
Yeah, and, I've heard actually people say, oh, don't do any research on the internet. And I just can't fathom people actually making that statement because there's a lot of information on the internet that is very, very good. It's exactly what you find in a lot of books. It's just that you need to know where to access, that information. And that's not just from, as you said, Danny, going to another YouTube channel or a blog or somewhere where someone's giving their perspective. You actually want the information, the real information, so that then you can make your own conclusion based on that.
It's something else. I tell you, when you start looking into the electric universe, and I mean, you lose count of the eureka moments of, oh my goodness, that's why that works. That's why the wind blows. This is why people do these things. It's incredible that it can all be narrowed down to positive and negative, right and wrong, left and right, the duality, so to speak.
Yeah.
It can always be, everything can be related to positive and negative.
Yeah.
And I always say this. If anybody ever tells you to fear anything, that is the first damn thing you better find out everything you can about. I'm telling you right now. If somebody tells you
what do we fear most?
You better find out everything you can about it because there's a reason they're telling you to fear it, and usually it's because they don't want you to know anything about it. That's why.
What does the human race fear most? Death.
Yeah, exactly. And why? Really?
Yeah.
We're energy. We're infinite. We're not ever going to die. It's only our human form that disintegrates, but our energy, our spirit, will never die. So I don't know. I don't get that. I've never really feared death, but of course I would miss the people that I love. But as far as fearing death, I don't really have that fear.
That was on PhysOrgs last year. I think an article came out about after they said down that almost inconclusive evidence of life after death. That the magnetic energy that is you continues to go somewhere. Well, everything, when you look at the electric universe, everything goes somewhere.
Yeah.
Everything's going somewhere. It is a universe of motion.
Yeah, constant state of motion.
And motion is energy. It's like the gyroscopic effects that they can't explain. Like you take a plastic wheel and put it on a table, and it'll fall over if you don't do anything. But if you roll it, it'll stand up all day long.
Right.
Or spin it. You can spin it around, and it'll spin around and stand straight up. But if it's not doing anything, it just falls over. It's crazy. Like a bicycle wheel. You can take a bicycle wheel. That's crazy if you ever tried that. You can hold on to one side of it and spin it, and you can actually let go and just hold it with one finger on one side. It won't fall over until it stops spinning. You
Hey,
take a string, and it's crazy.
Yeah, I just saw that. You want me to hang up and call back in?
Yeah, Pharaoh's suggesting that, yeah.
Okay, well, I might do. How about we take a 5-minute break?
Yeah, that's a good idea. It's like just past the hour anyway, so we can take a 5-minute break. Everybody can go grab a drink and popcorn and whatever.
Sounds good. Now, I am going to play a tune from one of my great subscribers, Catfish Daniels, and his band, Alias. And the tune's called Them. So I'm going to play that now, and I'll be back after this. Okay.
Okay, so since I'm hearing you guys, seeing you guys talk on the chat room, let me talk about a couple things real quick. So you guys are asking about colloidal silver. You guys are asking about blood electrification. If you guys haven't checked into the work of, and I don't believe he's here anymore. Let's see, let me just look it up real quick. It is Dr. Robert Beck. Okay. You can also buy these things online as well, but I can tell you this. I have personally tried it, and I can tell you this, that if I begin to get like a fever or something like that or whatever, I have this little device, okay? And what it consists of is it basically has two, it has a positive and a negative, and they're basically roach clips. And 3 batteries are connected to this device. You're basically shocking yourself, okay? But you're shocking yourself at such a low degree to where it doesn't like hurt you or anything like that. And so what you do is you put it on your wrist, right where your the blood is that goes through the arteries in your wrist. And this device, and so you take the positive and the negative, you put it there, you wrap these stainless steel things in cotton, you dip them in salt water, and you wrap a band. You put that on your wrist, and you hold that on your wrist, okay? So what it does is when you crank that up a little bit, it sends a small electrical pulse through your blood. And what that does, according to Dr. Robert Beck, and I can personally testify, what it actually does is when viruses try to attack your cell, it actually alters the proteins on the virus, and they can't attack the cell, and then they just die. So if you're getting like a virus or something like that, you hook one of these blood electrification units up to yourself, and because you got to remember, if you put it on your wrist, your blood has got to travel through your body like so many times per minute or something like that, and so it's constantly circulating. So when you've got that pulse sitting there right there on top of that artery, then as that blood is passing by, it's being electrified, okay? And it's not hurting your cells. It only hurts the viruses, okay? And that's the interesting thing about it. It doesn't hurt your cells. It only hurts the viruses. And it will kill 99.9% of that stuff. If you use it, and if you do that, and then you sit like for about 15 minutes, and then you follow it up with colloidal silver. Colloidal silver, the best way to make colloidal silver is to use only distilled water. You don't want to use spring water or other kind of, but you want distilled water because it's pure water. You don't want contaminants in it, okay? And so what you do is you take 2 pieces of silver and you stick them down in the water, like say in a glass of water, okay? Like what you can do is you can actually take like a piece of cardboard, just cut out a square piece of cardboard, and poke 2 holes in it. Now, and when you get your silver, what you want to do now, and you got to remember, you can go to the vitamin store and you can buy something called Sovereign Silver, and Sovereign Silver, I believe, is it's like $40 a bottle, and it's like and what they're giving you and what they're charging you for $40 for, you can actually make yourself in about 15 minutes with distilled water and a piece of silver. Okay. The only difference is they can atomize it down a lot smaller than what you'll be able to, but what you'll be able to do with the silver that you get will be just fine for the purposes. And so what you do is you get 2 pieces of silver, you hook up a 12-volt battery, okay, use DC, all right? You stick the 2 pieces of silver through the cardboard, set the cardboard on top of the glass of water to where the 2 pieces of silver are just kind of dangling inside the water, but they're not touching each other, right? And so when you apply that voltage to it, to both of them, what happens is that when they're both in the water, one of them will start to atomize, and you'll start seeing the smoke coming off of. It looks like smoke coming off of one of the silver rods. And what that is it's actually silver. It's very, very small silver. But you're not going to see it in distilled water. You'll see it in regular water, but you don't want to use regular water, right? With distilled water, you can use like a laser, I believe, can show you if there's that much in there, but you don't need that much. So if you do that for about 10 minutes or so, then you've got yourself a bunch of colloidal silver from distilled water. That's all you got to do. It's really very simple. So I think I made a video on this a while back, and it's very kind of hard to describe since it's a very visual thing to do. But what I'll do is I'll probably re-upload it for folks out there because, screw the FDA. I'm so sick of these guys. Nobody wants to cure you, okay? I'll tell you that right now. If you are a business person and you are in the pharmaceutical industry, there is no way in hell you're going to tell me that as a business person that you want to cure anything, okay? Because I'll call you a liar because curing people does not make profits. The only thing that they want really is to keep you as a patient, and what they would like to really do is they'd like to keep you a patient for as long as they possibly can until they think you're about to die. Again, like if I was a business person and I was in the pharmaceutical industry, I would say, okay, let's get this person a disease, or let's treat this person's disease with something where they have to take medication as many times as possible. So they have to buy our product as much as they possibly can.
Oh, thank God, Danny. You've been talking all the time. It's great.
Yeah, I've been talking the whole time. But let me finish.
Well,
let me finish. I'm talking right now. So you basically what they want to do is they want to say, okay, I want to give this person a treatment where they have to buy as much of my medication as possible. They have to take it as many times per day as possible, and they have to take it until they die. And based on the particular disease that they have, what we want to make sure of is that close to death, that there's some other way that we can suck more money out of them before they die. It's all about money, folks. If anybody tells you that every single problem that we have in this whole world, it always boils down to money. Check it out. You go research it yourself. It's always about money. Why is the United States invading all the countries? It's about money. Why is there evil here and evil there? It's always about money. Money is always the reason. Money is the reason why people are poor. We shouldn't have to have money to live on this planet, but we do. Why is it I have to have a dollar in my pocket in order to be able to eat? That's ridiculous. And I was talking about blood electrification, and I digressed here. And the blood electrification unit, though, that I'm talking about, you can actually find them on eBay, and you can cure yourself, okay? About 99% of all this bullshit that's out there, you can cure yourself with these electrification units. Okay, all you got to do is just hook up 3 9-volt batteries together, and allow it to electrocute your blood. If you feel like you're getting a virus or something like that, you don't need to take all these stupid antibiotics. Just kill the virus with electricity, follow it up with some colloidal silver, and you're done. That's it. That's all you got to do. And if you got something like HIV or AIDS or something like that out there, well, blood electrification kills that too. Do it for about 15 minutes. I think, what did I hear him say? You do 15 minutes, like several sessions of 15 minutes, and then follow it with colloidal silver, and do that. And it doesn't hurt when these things are electrocuting your blood. When you've got these probes next to your skin like that, it doesn't hurt at all. It's not dangerous. It doesn't hurt at all. It just kind of feels like almost like somebody's giving your wrist a massage in a way, is what it feels like when you're wearing one of these things. And so if you'll put one of those things on your wrist, if you feel like you're coming down with a fever, if you feel like you're coming down with any kind of thing like that, just slap one of those things on you and you'll be just fine in about 15 to 20 minutes. And you know how I know that? Because I've tried it and it has worked for me. The last 2 times where I felt like I was going to get a fever, I hooked up my electrification unit. 30 minutes later, my fever was gone. I was back to normal again. And that is my personal testimony. I can't speak for everybody. I'm just telling you that it worked for me. So I'm going to put a video up later, and I hope that'll help everybody. So, D, yours, all yours.